of things we got to discuss because we see things a little bit differently. Because again, I still want to take this thing seriously. There's still a lot of unknowns.
So I've been holding off on making this video for basically the last 4 years. And, I've really contemplated whether or not I should even make this video because I know it's not a great look for me, bad-mouthing a person that I used to work with, but it's really come to a point, and I've given this person every single opportunity to make amends, that I really feel like this video needs to be made. And I do feel a little guilty about making a title, Tim P calls out Luke Rudkowski, but I am Tim P. I'm Tim. I'm in a pool right now just having a little bit of fun with this. But Luke and I, we started working together right around the time the pandemic began. It was actually about a week before the whole pandemic began, scamdemic. Actually, interesting enough, as a little side note, because I've just got so many different data points over here, is that where all this really started going wrong, pretty much right at the beginning. But I looked up to Luke a lot. They always say don't meet your heroes. Not that he was, a hero of mine, but I did respect the fact that he had the balls to go into, sneak into the Bilderberg group with him and Jeff Berwick, and sneak into, all these different events with Henry Kissinger and call out, all these major globalists like Rothschild. And he did some really hardcore stuff. For that, he should be commended. Like, I didn't even know he had a daily news show until, I'd seen him on Facebook where he asked, hey, he was basically had a falling out with Jason Burmis. And I think Jason Burmis is great. I've never met the guy in person. I think maybe we both have been on Union of the Unwanted at the same time, maybe, exchange some words. But, nothing against Jason. And clearly I can see why, somebody would have a falling out with Luke, because then he was, I think, the replacement after Josh Sigurdson had a falling out with Luke. And, basically, I was picturing him as this, super hardcore guy. And it got to the point where he was like, hey, you're going to get people killed playing tennis. And I'm thinking, really, are you serious that, I've got the guy who snuck in to Bilderberg, snuck into Epstein Island, telling me that I'm going to get people killed for playing tennis? And
certain, and I still would say take this more seriously than not. It's rather to be safer than sorry. It doesn't hurt you to put on a mask. It doesn't hurt you to put on gloves. It doesn't hurt you to respect the space of others, especially the older or immune compromised. It doesn't hurt you. And I think by doing that, we could prevent this situation, this crisis from getting worse, which would prevent more government from coming in. That's been my strategy from the beginning. We don't know what this is. Take this seriously, protect your loved ones, give them space. Let's take self-responsibility, make sure that this doesn't spread because we don't know what it is or what's going to happen or the larger effects of this, so government doesn't have an excuse to come in. That's been my strategy from the beginning. But you got to understand, it's a guy who clearly was not opening the door to police officers. Again, a lot of police officers could be super spreaders.
I had mentioned the word pandemic. I had actually gotten an interview, well, Luke and I, with Dr. Judy. Now, this is before anyone outside of the health freedom movement even knew who she was. This was 7 or 8 days before pandemic, the series even came out. And so we had interviewed her, and the entire time he's texting me, like, you need to kill this, you need to cut this lady's crazy. And, and he's got all these different, he's like rolling his eyes, absolutely with this look of disgust on his face the entire time that she's talking. And like I said, about a week later, Pandemic, the series comes out. She's pretty much the toughest interview in the world to get at this point. And here we are sitting on like absolute gold, and he does not allow us to air the interview. And he's, telling me, he's like, you've never been a real journalist before. All these other channels you've been on are much smaller, but we've got a responsibility to people, and the information you are putting out is going to get people killed. It's just absolutely reckless. And
you might not know it now, but censorship is rife right now, and you might not know that because it's censorship. And it's going to get a lot worse, as of course YouTube just announced that they're creating a new panel of experts to prevent the spread of fake news, aka more digital book burning that we've been seeing. It's such an atrocious and outrageous way, even banning doctors from giving out their theories and their observations about what is happening right now. It's absolutely ridiculous what's happening out there, Tim. How this channel's been hit, how the main channel, We Are Change, has been hit, has been demonetized, downranked in the algorithm.
And I guess why I'm deciding to come out with this now is I did see Luke Actually, it's only the second time I've seen him since we, stopped making videos. Once was at PorcFest in 2020. That's the Porcupine Freedom Festival up in New Hampshire. I was there again. It was sort of a last-second thing, but I was there again. And, and actually the first time I saw him in 2020, he actually had a squirt gun there. And now he might deny this, but, probably 1,000 people saw him there with a squirt gun. But he had a squirt gun there, so that way no one could get close to him, because he would then, squirt them with water. But the entire time, and I was trying to be respectful when we were doing videos together, because, like I said, he was someone I looked up to. He had a, very big, audience, and, but it was getting to the point where, it was just so hard to do, because, he was telling me, advocating for wearing masks, and
from a user called Freedom, and he says wearing a mask to stop this sickness is like wearing underwear to stop a fart. Very interesting analysis there. I enjoyed your comparison, and in some ways, Freedom, you're right. In some ways, you're wrong. When we look at studies that have been conducted about particles passing through different substances, cotton, cloth, normal cloth that your t-shirt is usually made out of, usually allows 20% of the particles to go through, blocks about 20% of them. When we look at masks, particularly the N95 mask, or even other materials like construction towels, blue construction towels that also have been studied, you see about 95% of the particles actually being stopped there. So yes, it doesn't fully stop the stench of the proverbial fart, but there's certain substances, there's certain cloths that work a lot better than others. There's certain masks that work better than others. So obviously, if you put in cloth, as the CDC has been telling you to do, which we criticized. Again, you got to watch our video that I made about this, particularly talking about the studies that have been done with the particular cloths. But yes, the CDC telling you to put a shirt over your head, 20% effective. There's other materials, construction towels and masks that do work 95% more most of the time, but nothing's universal. Even in one clip, he's like, "Hey, look at me, I'm temperature," and he goes and grabs a tissue, puts it over his face. He's like, "Look at me, I'm temperature, and I'm too afraid to wear the mask. Wear the damn mask, baby. What are you worried about your makeup getting ruined?" And so it's just ideas of masks are a good one even before all of this. Even before all of this controversy, before the coronavirus, before all the sickness, I still thought it was wise to wear a mask just like the Asian countries did. I did a lot of traveling in Asian countries, in Thailand, in Korea, in Japan, in Philippines. And it's normal for a lot of people to wear masks. And I was like, why are people wearing masks? Are they sick? Or how many people are, infected here? What's going on here? At first, I was worried. At first, I was startled. It was a culture shock. Like, oh, what the hell? This place is, it wasn't something I was used to. But then it was explained to me that people wear the masks out of courtesy to make sure that they don't spread any sickness or illness, since there's a lot of different influenzas running all around Asia, and they have more of a significant impact than, of course, other more modern Western countries, especially in more kind of poorer areas that I traveled to. But if you look at Hong Kong, they're a territory that has pretty much commonly, culturally, acceptably used face masks. They almost wiped off all of influenzas in their country. They don't deal with a massive flu season like we do. And I think that's something to think about. I think it's courteous. I think it also hides your identity for Big Brother. I think it's something that is nice and respectful, especially to elderly people or the immune compromised. Some people are saying, well, if you're old or if you're immune compromised, stay home. I mean, we all got to go shopping sometime. We all got to get our groceries somehow, and there's no other way to do that. So it's one little step. I wouldn't mandate it. I wouldn't say the government should enforce it, but I think it should be incentivized, and I think there should be some public information and education surrounding this to incentivize human beings to do this out of courtesy. I don't think we should be using government to do this, but I think it's the common sense approach to, sway off a lot of, the bigger problems here. You look at the countries that culturally have it acceptable to wear masks. Look at countries like the Czech Republic, where they, incentivized wearing masks. They talked about wearing masks. They're dealing with this a lot better than the countries that didn't. And it's something small. It's something simple. And I think, why not? Why not? Sorry.
America. I don't know. That's why not. But anyways, I'm looking at.
Yeah, but it's like but America. But do you have any logical things to go against, like saying, hey, it would be nice if you would wear a mask? Is there anything against that? Is there anything wrong with me saying, because there's been a lot of feedback that's been very negative. What's the negative consequences here?
I mean, I live in Arizona, dude. It's already 100 degrees. I don't need that reverse mask.
Oh, so it's your convenience. So it's your convenience that you don't want a little sweat.
Those who would trade.
Do you wear makeup? Is that it?
Those who would trade temporary convenience and liberties for safety, something like that.
This is not liberty. This is convenience. So, you're just making stuff up here.
I am not. I'm trying to quote Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson. I forgot which one. Anyways, I've got
tissue on my face. Oh my God, the tyranny. Oh my God. Stop being a fool. I would like to have citizens considerate of others and maybe taking a step that could potentially and has scientifically shown to prevent the spread of this and other sicknesses to other fellow human beings. I think that's a common sense approach.
Yes, so I am trying to take a look right now at...
Other than convenience, is there another argument? I got the Bill de Blasio information here.
To not wear a mask? I mean, I think that this whole thing is a scam, and it's basically like, okay, people die of the flu every year, and we've got about the same amount of people dying from the flu. I mean, if I'm
not with the again, we don't know because again, we had a huge freaking lockdown. We don't know for sure. Yeah, like and
well, then the people that don't want to go outside, maybe there should be some sort of leniency of, okay, if you are an employee and you don't want to go to work, then maybe there's some sort of thing of, okay, you don't get fired if you don't go to work or something like that. But maybe the government then pays those people. We don't need to shut everything down. Now, obviously, that would be taken advantage of.
It all depends on the states. It all depends on the states and their handling of it. And there have been other people that have opened their business up and nothing has happened. Tesla just disobeyed the orders. There's a bunch of people that are just disobeying the orders and they're carrying on. And if they're carrying on, if they have a little bit of courtesy, I think that wouldn't hurt people. And I think that would be good. But I agree with some of the outstanding elements. I'm not a fan of government. Government has been atrocious here. But again, is there a logical argument not to wear masks?
I mean, I think in terms of, some of the things the doctors were talking about is while you're inside at your home, what you're doing is you're not exposing yourself to other good bacteria that's out there, and then you are then actually decreasing your immune system. So that and again, I'm not a doctor; it's not my main area of expertise.
Okay, we could just jump to it unless you have something really strong to say.
Well, no, the strongest thing is that as everybody then goes, boom, let's all go back to work on May 1st or something, or different places, different times, different locales. But anyways, let's say we all go back to work at the same time. Now you got everyone who has weakened immune systems. They haven't been outside. They're not getting the vitamin D. They were told not to get vitamin C. They were told to wear masks and not to wear masks, and everything get conflated by the government. Now they're all going to go back to work at the same time if they have jobs, and those people are going to be more at risk for getting sick. And then you probably then see a wave of all this stuff get even worse. And then we're going to be locked down forever. We're just going to live in complete lockdown mode. And so I think this has been way overblown, like probably one of the biggest overblown reactions in the history of the world. Certainly in the history of my lifetime. We were both about the same age here. So, and then we weren't planning on having this whole thing. I wanted to get into de Blasio and to,
everything you said, sure. Okay. But other places that have a culture of wearing masks, they didn't need to lock down. They didn't need to implement these huge economic restrictions, and they didn't, and they're doing a lot better than we are. So just something to think about.
But by needing to lock down, if you're in China or one of these Asian countries and people are very subservient to government, very subservient to authority telling them what to do, they don't have the American culture. They don't have 350 million guns of people that are willing to push back on them, and so it's a little bit different situation over there than.
Well, it's not. No. I'm not saying guns. It has nothing to do with guns. I'm just saying places where they wear masks. This hasn't hit as hard as it did to places that didn't wear masks. And because it hasn't hit as hard, the government didn't need to step in, didn't need to intervene, and they haven't intervened. And many of the economies are still running. Obviously not as strong as before because of the fear, because of the impact of this, but they're still running.
Well, and they also have fake numbers. I mean, what they're coming out of China.
I mean, if you compare the numbers in like South Korea, in Japan specifically, Northern Asian, very intelligent countries, you look at their handling of this, there hasn't been that of draconian, restrictive, hardcore measures. There's been, tracking and tracing and making sure that people wear masks. And I think that's been one of the factors that it hasn't really exploded there as it has everywhere else, and hasn't devastated the economy as it has everywhere else. So I think that's just something worth considering.
Yeah, I mean, we also have people flying in from all over the world and here, whereas in other places it's maybe not as much the case. But
Tokyo? You ever been to Tokyo? Holy cow, there's people living on top of each other like little boxes. It's crazy in there. Same with Hong Kong. Hong Kong is absolutely...
Well, I would like to see their economic incentives of if those places have, let's say, okay, if you are in Tokyo in a hospital and you have COVID, maybe you get, $35,000, or do you get is there any economic incentives to then diagnose people? Or are they doing it after the fact like they're doing in America? But, oh, this person died 2 months ago. We're not going to actually test them for it, but we're just going to say they died of COVID, or, oh, they were skydiving and the parachute didn't open and they hit the ground, but, oh, they had COVID too. And so I don't trust any of these numbers that anybody's saying.
Well, they're taking it seriously, and there's a lot of data coming from epidemiologists, especially in Korea, especially in Japan, that have been really on the forefront of this, clarifying it.
Just absolutely astonishing. Now, some people will try to defend him and say, oh, he was just joking, and he didn't really mean that, or he was doing hyperbole. What? And he never clued me in on it. The guy that he was, shot like 110 videos with.
Out to all the people prepared like that did, and all the other people with the mask on. Everybody else, you stupid. What the fuck is wrong with you not wearing masks? What the fuck? Oh, these people going about their day. That's not a problem. It's just a motherfucking pandemic. How the fuck are not people prepared for this? Why are they even wearing masks? Yeah. What the fuck? Out to all the people prepared like that did.
In the course of 2.5 months. And so anyways, I saw him at Porkfest, man on man, no Diddy, nothing like that. But I was, I looked behind me at the campfire, and he's, right there, and basically, and the look in his eyes is like he just saw a ghost or something, because he didn't realize that he had posted up right next to me. And I'm like, hey man, nice to see you here without, left your squirt gun at home. Just playful, playing around. And then I proceeded to ask him, like, hey, I respect the fact that, you do have a very hard work ethic, and I will not take that away from him. The guy has an absolutely, very hard work ethic. He's very good at delegating other things out, because, he's not necessarily always doing the work, but that's smart. That's what a smart businessman would do. And so, I asked him, like, hey, now that you've been on Tim Pool's show, and you've pretty much taken, every stance that I had, and every stance that, Josh had, and, several others who were out there, was there ever a point where you thought maybe, hey, I can, just at least respect the fact that I was willing to leave a channel with 800, 900,000 subscribers, willing to do this in the very beginning, which would have, absolutely catapulted my career. But just on principle, I wasn't willing to tell people to wear masks. I wasn't willing to tell people to social distance. Wasn't willing to sell out my principles. Just asking, actually, I didn't mention that stuff, but I'm like, do you at least respect the fact that, I stood on principle, and then, about a year later, you then came around and had all my views, and, it's not about giving me credit or anything, but, can you at least respect that? And he's just gives me this look of disgust. He's like, no, like, I have no respect for you, because I was right the entire time. You were wrong throughout all this. Everybody knows that I never said those things that you were, accusing me of. And I'm like, come on, I know
aspects of it, because they're so interconnected, they're so interlaced. So sometimes people get mixed up, sometimes people make mistakes. It's important to own up to it. We're man enough to own up that yes, I've made a mistake here, and that's what makes us different than a lot of other people, is having that honest, real conversation, which a lot of people are missing. Long and short of it, you're getting screwed. Companies with Illuminati sounding names are just raking in the dollars. Meanwhile, everyone else is left to suffer. And
you're trying to, act like a tough guy in front of your girlfriend right now, but, whatever your flavor of the week is. But all these things are on video. I mean, you can't BS me. You can't BS everyone here. We all know what you said. I mean, but, can you at least acknowledge the fact that at a certain point, about a year later, you adopted pretty much all the views that I was saying right out of the gates?
I think there's... I mean, I really think that there's an important distinction there, because I think you're right that we are trying to see what government will get away with. And so for me, I'm pretty much living my life as normal right now, because I don't want, to have the government tell me what I can and can't do. And I think that by having me bow down and say, oh, well, I'm going to social distance because
it's not
otherwise
bowing down. It's being respectful of older people. It's being respectful.
Well, then they should stay home. Well, then they should stay home then. I mean,
but some people don't have that option. Some people don't have that luxury. Some people do have to go get groceries. Some people do have to do that. Again, we could agree to disagree, but again, we still don't know the larger ramifications here. We still don't know exactly how this is going to
I think it's a trial balloon. I think it's all a trial balloon for next time.
Would never give me credit. That's fine. And then go and start working with Tim Pool, who I do know that he doesn't even like, but the fact that Tim has a big audience, he's willing to do what he needs to do to, sell more t-shirts, because at the end of the day, that's what he is. He's a t-shirt salesman. And so, I've had the ability to put out videos on Josh Dickerson's channel, World Alternative Media, and, I barely even do it. I've put out, maybe like 5 or 6 videos all year, because almost everything, and really where I'm going with this is, and we're going to get to all the clips and all the videos, and really Luke talking, Luke exposing himself in his own words, in his own videos. So, I don't even need to say any of this stuff, but, I wanted to give you some of the backdrop, because a lot of people ask, where I went, what I ended up doing. And,
No, before you never invite me back on again? No,
no, of course. As you know, when we started the show, I never told you what you can and cannot say. I never told, set any guidelines. It's all about free speech. It's all about having that conversation. We never censor comments in the comment section below, because the way to progress humanity and ourselves is to be able to talk about the things that a lot of people are afraid to talk about. We're not afraid to talk about that here. That's why we are independent media, and that's why you're here with us. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here.
And, right around the time the pandemic began, actually the first day of lockdown, my ex and I, wife, decided to, call it splits. And, I've been putting out about 3 videos a day. My business was booming, expanding, those things were going really great. And, the landlord we had at the time, because, I strategically sold my house thinking that was going to go down, but, didn't make out in that one. But, the landlord was selling the house, and so we're at the beginning of COVID. I've got the whole pandemic. I have no family in town. I'm like, hey, dude, like, can I just take, 2 days off? It was a long weekend. I think it was, I don't know if it was Memorial Day. It was, anyway, yeah, it was, I just asked for an extra day off. Not that I'm getting paid on this anyways. And he's like, I'm so disappointed in you. You're not well researched. And, and it got really, really contentious. And so here I am, my kids are, having to move out of the house. I'm then having to move as well. And, just very, very bad time. I mean, you have the whole pandemic going down, so much uncertainty. And, you've got a man that's down, and here he is, kicking me when I'm down and telling me I'm not well researched. And, you can call me a lot of things, but not well researched isn't one of them, especially when, then he, called me a middle-aged divorced man when, I'm 6 months older than him. And at the time he was still living with his parents. And so it's just crazy that, the guy has adopted so many of the things that I was talking about without giving me any credit, while then trashing me. And, it really was unbelievable. And then he actually ended up moving out of his parents' house, and where he ended up was Jay Noon's. And how did he end up at Jay Noon's? He had asked me, who is the best prepper you know? And I said, I think Jay Noon is probably one of the best preppers I know. And then I told him that I was looking at getting a Ram 2500 and a fifth wheel. And next thing you know, he's living at Jay Noon's in a Ram 2500 in a fifth wheel. So now I ended up not doing that because, everything going on in my life, and, couldn't be away from my kids. So I didn't want to be away from my kids. So anyways, I think we've... Actually, my DJ Osmo ended up overheating out here in the Arizona sun, but just want to make 2 more points. So one of the other reasons why I stopped working with him is and one of the big points of contention, because I really never gave an update of like, hey, how come, one day I'm out making videos, then the next day we never make another video again. So, really it's to all the people that helped that subscribe to Change the News. I do feel bad about not making this, but again, I was never out about, you know, trying to get the most amount of views or clicks or, you know, be Mr. Popularity, but I do want to be able to stand back on the body of my work of what I was putting out there. And, you know, that is something I am proud of. But one of the things that he wanted me to do was to make a compilation. So I was the one running all like the ones and twos behind the scenes. I was the one who was doing all the scene switching. And so he had gotten together a whole bunch of clips where he wanted me to, you know, put these all together to basically make fun of Dan Dix and talk about how Dan was, you know, so dumb for trying to protest these lockdowns. And Dan was one of the people who, when I first started going down the whole conspiracy rabbit hole, like him and James Corbett and, you know, like I mentioned before, Jason Burmis, you know, all these guys who were, you know, I thought just, you know, absolute legends. And, you know, I'm like, no, I'm not going to make a video disparaging Dan Dix, especially when I agree with what Dan's doing right now, and that's the exact side that I take. So no, I'm not going to do it. So then, you know, fast forward, you know, probably a day or two later, and Josh Stigerson, World Alternative Media, ends up telling me like, hey, you know, Luke had told me that he wanted to make a video attacking Dan, and I'm like, yeah, he gave me all the clips, and I told him I wouldn't do it. And so then, you know, later on that day, Luke starts texting me back. He's like, hey, you know, that was our private conversation, and how dare you tell Josh, you know, the inner workings of what we're talking about, and, you know, we've got a serious trust problem, and I can't trust you anymore. And I'm like, well, if you didn't want Josh to know, then maybe you shouldn't have told him that you were planning on making a hit piece against Dan Dix. Maybe you shouldn't have put it all over Twitter and other places. You know, it wasn't not exactly giving away any secrets, because Josh is the one that told me that you wanted to go do this, and I confirmed that, yeah, he wanted me to go make a hit piece on Dan with him during one of our videos, and I wouldn't do it. I think it was a live video, and I wouldn't pull up the clips because I thought it was, you know, absolutely ridiculous. In hindsight, I probably should have pulled them up and then taken the counter argument to then defend Dan, but it was not that Dan needs any defending. But, you know, it was somebody who I looked up to, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And another reason why I'm putting this out now is not only did, you know, all the things that happened at PorkFest where he's denying having said any of this stuff, not only did that occur, but, you know, recently I've been down this whole rabbit hole of, you know, ancient civilizations and spirituality. I, you know, had a pretty crazy event that happened to me. I'm not going to get into that whole story now that led me down this whole rabbit hole. And, you know, I guess I'm not fully healed, or else maybe I wouldn't have to be making this video. And there's just so many different data points to go off of. But, you know, one of the guests he had on, I thought was, you know, complete controlled opposition to, you know, everything that I had been, you know, recently studying. And it's not to say that some of the stuff the guy talks about isn't true, but, you know, I had made a comment on his, you know, Facebook. It's like, hey, I'm about to go interview this guy. Does anyone have any questions for him? And I'm like, oh, you know, ask him why he keeps, you know, ducking Jason Breshears of Archaics for a debate, and ask him also why. I never talk about Billy Carson here. Ask him why he also, you know, talks about a shar being a year when a shar in actuality was a day from evening to evening. And so instead of having a Sumerian king ruling for 28,000 years, you know, what Jason talks about and what I think is correct is it was 28,000 days, which is still a long time. But, you know, it even makes more sense. It even makes more sense that it'd be 28,000 days, not years. I mean, it's just, then it puts into mythology. Anyways, this video is not on any of that stuff. And so, you know, now that I'm blocked, now that he's, you know, defriended me, now that he's, you know, basically called me a liar in person, now that he's stolen all of my views in terms of, you know, what I thought was really going on in the pandemic. And I wasn't, you know, a health freedom expert, and, you know, getting into, you know, at the time I believed viruses were actually real. You know, I guess that's one of the things I, you know, learned during this whole scamdemic. But, you know, in the interest of keeping this video not any longer than it has to be, you know, I guess we'll go from there. But, you know, in the following is Luke Rudkowski in his own words. And no, this is not satire. No, the clip we played at the beginning is not satire. He really did believe all this. You know, he's willing to burn the friendship over me. And then actually say that he never said any of this stuff. And then he, after he pisses off his entire audience, then goes and brings it to the Tim Pool show. And it even told me that he doesn't like Tim Pool, thinks he's a fence sitter. You know, the guy was, you know, voting for Obama in 2012. is always, pretty far behind, on a lot of these issues. And what really got me about Luke is that Luke was turned on to the ideas of voluntarism and anarchy before I was. He knew about 9/11. It was an inside job way before I did. I had luckily escaped probably the most prestigious liberal arts school in New York, at least a public school, and at least escaped all that indoctrination, and came out of there as a conservative, and then a Ron Paul guy, basically. Not basically. I ran a whole marathon carrying a Ron Paul sign, and Luke was someone that already got it, and so he knows this stuff, but he knows it's not where the bread gets buttered. He knows it's not where you're going to be selling T-shirts, and so now he's glommed onto this whole best political show, knowing that all of this is theater, knowing that all of this, what it does is it takes our attention, takes our louche, diverts it to these areas that really, quite frankly, we're in the spiritual battle. And he's doing it for clicks. He's doing it so he can keep everybody in, like, make one of those dumb faces on one of his videos, like, oh, or like have some innocuous title like, can you believe what they did? That's really sort of the script of what he's doing. But in essence, he's not really a news guy. He's a T-shirt salesman. And our channel was called Change the News Channel, and basically it ended up being just a rehashing of whatever Fauci wanted in CNN. And I was sick of getting censored. I was sick of having that Dr. Judy Mikovits interview, having gotten censored. I was sick. There was another time where I'd given that famous Bill Gates TED Talk where he talks about peace for people, and one of these is going to have to get pretty close down to zero, and it's a whole ploy for carbon. But we've all heard that one, and so he actually cut that out of the video.
You might not know it now, but censorship is rife right now. And you might not know that because it's censorship.
Where he goes on to say, this is not like you're in like a 12-foot truck and you've got a 10-foot bridge. You need to lower the truck by 2 feet. No, we need to get down to zero. And actually, I probably paraphrased it a lot better than that. But I go back to see the video and it's cut out. So is he, carrying the water for Bill Gates? And I know that he's now critical of Bill Gates, but it just goes to show like what was going on here. And I had people asking me, is Luke controlled op? And I think he really is just that dumb. And then I think, after a year, he ends up, seeing, putting the finger in the wind. And, he was around a bunch of hardcore guys. He was around me. He was around, Ernest Hancock, who never complied with any of this stuff. He was living with Jane Noon, who's, super hardcore, way more hard, like one of the, a guy that, doesn't even have his license, he's never had, I don't think he even has like a birth certificate or any of that stuff. Like just super, principled guy. And he was living with him and he still didn't get it. It took him about a year. And then, afterwards, instead of making a mea culpa, he then just goes over to Tim Pool and, pretends that he never said any of this stuff while selling T-shirts saying tested positive for never being afraid, while, being the most afraid guy there was. I maybe wore a mask 3 times. One of those times was flying back from Acapulco. I put a mask on February 19th, 2020, thinking this was going to come, and then had the TSA make me take it off, when I was going through a TSA pre-check global entry interview. Then another time I flew July 3rd without a mask, 2020, and they got all pissed off at me then, and I've got that on video. And then another one, I flew with a gas mask, just because I was going to go see my grandparents, and I was, upset that they were going to, potentially, pass away because they got the, what. And they wouldn't let me on the plane with the gas mask. So, a few times I've worn it, but, my girlfriend at the time, had huge balls, metaphorically speaking, never put on a mask ever. And we were going everywhere, like probably the top 1% of people traveling all around and, trying to be the example to people. And now he's going and selling shirts saying tested positive for never being afraid, when he was the most afraid little bitch there was out of anybody, which is fine. But what you need to do? You need to own up to it.
It's important to own up to it. We're man enough to own up that, yes, I made a mistake here. And that's what...
we're in an 8 year, 2024 adds up to 8. 8 is the number of karma. And so that's why we're doing this. You've blocked me. You've stolen all the views that I had in terms of, what I really thought this whole pandemic was about without attributing anything to me. And, denied everything in person, but now what we're going to do is we're going to show you in your own words. And I don't have some big crew that's going back and trying to find all these clips. So, there's only maybe like 10 videos that I put through some software to, clip out some certain things and see what we have. But, certainly if you want to go back to the Change the News channel, put things through your own AI and find other clips, let me know, and we'll go from there. Anyway.
No,
before you never invite me back on again? No,
no, of course. As you know,
Ross Ulbricht is serving a double life sentence without parole for all nonviolent charges for creating a website. Please help free this peaceful man. Go to freeross.org and sign and share the petition.